So there are some interesting elements here because obviously as part of the literature review for this work, I had to read through an awful lot of government policy and the Equality Act
That
multiple
sounds
times.
so dull.
Yeah, I won't deny it. But actually, no. One of the interesting things, and this is when you have to say something's interesting, you sometimes wonder if I have to qualify it as being interesting. Interesting, is it really? But no. In this case, I think it probably is. Is that
You said it again. That means it's terrible. It's terribly disinteresting.
well,
No,
looking at it from a student's perspective and
Yeah.
looking at. So the reason to use law is if you feel that you've been unfairly treated. So you'd use the Equality Act. You would basically, you go and see a barrister, not a lawyer, that's America. In this country, it'd be a solicitor. You go and see a solicitor and say that I've been unfairly treated because of A, B and C. And they would say, well, you would have a case under the Equality Act because that's one of the protected characteristics and then justify that piece of statutory legislation. It doesn't mean to say it's the only piece of legislation that may fit. Quite often you'll hear about a new law being brought in and you think, well, why is there a new law in that? Because it's already covered by another piece of legislation. For instance, when you're filming on a beach, somebody say you're not allowed to film here. Well, no, you are because you're in a public space. But you may be filming children inappropriately, in which case, no, there's other legislation that prevents you from doing that. So it's always a patchwork. And the really see, I've said really interesting now. I'm absolutely condemning this tidbit.
It's in your head now.
Yeah, but so when it comes to students that feel that they've been unfairly treated by, say, a university, you would think, oh well, the equality legislation is going to be your primary friend. But there's quite a lot to prove under the Equality Act. And as we were saying earlier, intersectionality may mean that you have to pursue it under one element, whereas the two taken together is what's caused the prejudice. So you're unlikely to be successful because they say, well, that's actually not reached them. There's a set of sort of measures to allow a judge or a jury to make a decision under that. So what they're actually suggesting now is that students wouldn't bother with the Equality Act because of the way that education is now funded. And I don't think this has been tried in law yet, and this is a specific paper, Roberts and Howe, if you're interested in following up.
Wow,
I'm
impressed.
Yeah, and what they suddenly realised is that actually a student that wants to progress a case under prejudice would have a sense of recourse through the consumer legislation because they're paying for their education. And that's far more powerful, and the potential awards are quite high. Exactly, and that's the point. So you've just shown your legal knowledge. I see you looking very proud of yourself. Precedent. Yeah, and actually it does, and you're exactly right, because it takes one case to be won to set that as a legal precedent, and then it becomes very straightforward for people to prosecute underneath that piece of legislation. So yeah, consumer law is, and I know the universities are concerned about that because there is training being given around consumer law, and that's a facet, that's a way in which education is developing. So and actually another rationale for my research, because if we were, for instance, to be found not to be inclusive in the television studio, obviously a student would be able to pursue us for damages under the Equality Act 2010 or, in fact, consumer law.